Do you know someone who appears like they've achieved everything in their life, but something about them feels off? You probably know that guy that I'm talking about. He's solid, he's dependable. He's the one that everybody leans on. He shows up for you. He handles stuff. You know he's going to get it done. He's the guy that you would call at 2 a.m. when just everything felt wrong and you would want to get his help. He's the first one that would be there for you when your car breaks down. He's the guy who would cover the check and wave you off when you're trying to reach for your wallet. At work, when the stuff hits the fan, he's the guy that people go and seek out because he'll fix everything. And he does every single time. He's the man. But here's the thing that no one sees about this guy. He drives home in the dark and he sits in his car when it's quiet. And he asks himself this question. He just says this to himself, why is there no one ever there for me? There's no one there to lean on when I need the help. If you could see under his armor, he'd tell you that he can't remember the last time that somebody knew what was actually going on inside of him. Let me say that again because it's important. The guy looks like he's got it all. Everybody can lean on him. And nobody actually knows who this person is underneath. You know, a lot of what we carry, we really don't have a name for it. There's a disconnection inside of us. And most of us walk around never calling it that, we just don't know what it is. We don't realize that's the case. And I think that you know exactly what I'm talking about, this disconnection. Even if you don't have words for it, the disconnection. You've got the job, you've got the girl, maybe she's not there anymore. You've got the place, the paycheck, the big bank account, the whole setup you were supposed to want. And still, you're standing outside looking at your life through the window and you're not really recognizing that guy you see. And it's you. Hi, I'm Eric Miller, and I'm a spiritual director and coach and the founder of New Mindset Pathways. And this is our podcast. Here's what I want to accomplish with you. I want to talk to you about that feeling, the one that shows up even when your alter ego appears online, that feeling of disconnection. You'll soon know where that comes from. I want to talk more about that and why so many of us carry that around and we just don't have a name for it. And I'll move that needle for you. I hope towards the end you'll be able to see more and more is enlightened for you and stuff you can do. So now before I go any further, I want to tell you what this episode is not about, okay? This is not me saying that your problems are all in your head. That this is not me it's not me handing you a quick fix or a life hack either, for that matter. It's not me telling you just to think positive and it's all going to change for you. I'm talking about something quieter than that and honestly something that's much, much deeper. So stay with me. So let me define the thing clearly, disconnection, so we're all on the same page together. So disconnection isn't sadness. Sadness comes and goes. It isn't a bad week because those end, and sometimes not soon enough. Disconnection is deeper than a mood, and it's a slow drift away from our inner self and away from the real people, the people we want to connect with, we long for, we desire. It's away from anything that gives your life a bigger meaning, that disconnection. And it's sneaky because it doesn't arrive, it accumulates. No alarm goes off one day because it doesn't happen in just one day. It's 1,000 small choices. Not to look, not to reach, not to feel. Each one is reasonable on its own. It adds up over the years though, and we're stuck on autopilot with our lives. We're entrenched in our daily life and somehow we're not in it. We're not in our life. We're disconnected. We're looking in through the window at ourselves. We're a third person looking over top of us. It's not us. I'm here to talk more about that and a new pathway. And if you want to choose it, I'll invite you to walk it with me. But first, let me ask you something. And I'll be honest, it's just you and me here and a few others. When was the last time you felt truly connected? talking about with yourself. How about with someone else? And anything bigger than you. Higher power, God, whatever language you want to use for that. Something bigger than you. Not when you're busy at work or scrolling social, but I'm talking about really connected. That ache you might feel right now as I'm talking to you about it, a signal going off in you. We feel bad and we go looking for an answer to relieve that anxiety you might be having right now. Hopefully you're not going to go relieve it in some way. Let me talk to you first. There's not an easy button to push for this. Hey, listen, man, there's something I need to say to you though first. If it's a medical reason, it's real. That something's happening in your head that you can't describe, or you can't shake that sadness. A doctor is exactly the right call for you, and I mean that sincerely. Depression is real. Disconnection and depression are two different things. I never would tell someone to tough it out either, by the way, on their own, because that just doesn't work. Having said all that, here's what I've seen over and over and over again. Often there's another piece to the puzzle that's missing with this disconnection. Sometimes part of that ache is a sign trying to get our real attention. It's trying to say something very important to us. We just can't hear it. It's saying that there's something missing, something you were intended to have, and you just don't quite realize it yet. Here's what many of us get wrong in this. Numbing ourselves doesn't fix things. It dulls things, and we can't see the signs that we're being pointed towards. It just turns down the volume day after day when we're trying to go about numbing. And here's the part that might mess you up a little bit. That numbing works for a time, and that's the problem. If it didn't work, we would quit doing it, right? If it didn't work somewhat or divert us somewhere, if we could escape an emotional state that we didn't want. Because nobody keeps doing something that does nothing, right? It may be not doing what it used to be able to do for you, but it's still doing something where you're able to escape an emotional state that you don't want to be in. So it may take the edge off. It gets you through just another day. It doesn't last though, and it never touches the thing that's really deep inside, that's deep down. So you need a little bit more, and a little bit more scroll, because that thing that was working, as I mentioned, does work, but doesn't fully work, and you need more of it. You need more of a drink, a little bit more work, and the signal, the thing that we're trying to tell us something, it just isn't able to get through. You barely hear that signal through all the noise that's being surrounding you. The louder you numb, the quieter that signal gets. Until one day you can't tell what you're running from anymore at all. You just know you can't stop running. And when we can really escape that uneasiness, things like we can escape that with our phones, porn, booze, work, that endless doom scroll. Let me give you a picture of what I mean. I think of a guy, and honestly, he could be 100 guys I've sat with. He's a good man. He has kids, grinds all week, and every night the same thing happens. Everybody goes to bed and he stays up. He sits on the couch with his phone in his hand. He thumb scrolls. He's not even watching anything. And he couldn't tell you one thing. He just scrolled past. And one day he says to me, I don't really think I'm staying up to check my social. I think I'm staying up so I don't have to lay there in the dark with my own thoughts. It's what many of us do. Maybe you do too. It's whatever it takes to not feel that quiet. We just don't want to feel because it's uncomfortable. I know. It's the quiet. It's the hardest place we can be in. And underneath it all is a word we can say out loud. The word is lonely. Not lonely like no one is around lonely. You might have people around you all day long. No, it's the lonely like nobody actually knows the real you lonely. You don't feel like you're seen. Well, my friend, I see you. I want to tell you that right now. I see you. I know this is a video, but I still see you. I want you to really hear that, because it's being felt by many, many people It's just a problem today that many, many people have, is not being able to be seen, is what I'm trying to say. A man who is truly known by even one other person lives his life completely different than a man who's known by no one. Maybe you know that. So if that word landed lonely, don't rush past this, and please don't go, my friend. Some good stuff you might want to, that you'll hear, that you might be able to use in your life. It might be the most honest thing you've admitted to yourself all day, that you're lonely. And honest is exactly where we have to start when we do any type of changing. Okay, there are 3 types of disconnection I want to address with you, that I want to talk about, that I think to get specific about what disconnected means. There can be a lot of different definitions of disconnected. I want to make sure we're on the same page here with that. So when I say it, I mean 3 different things. Okay, so we're going to start with the first one, which I would argue is probably one of the most important ones, and that's the disconnection with yourself. That one, then followed by the other people, disconnected from other people, and then disconnected from a higher power, whatever language you use for that. Let's walk through them one at a time, okay? And we'll define these in a way in which I hope will relate. All right. The first one, let's start with disconnected from yourself, because as I said, I think it's one of the most important ones to start. And I argue it is the place we start, and can have the most impact in changing our lives when we look there. So you've been performing for so long maybe that you don't know any other mode. And think about it for a minute. You can read a room for 2 seconds when you're out and about. You know exactly who's in what mood, and who wants something from you, and who you have to guard against, because you know that person's dangerous. But the funny thing is, you can't read yourself in that. Think about that for a moment. You're really good. Maybe you're in a business or in a type of work that you do that you have to be around a bunch of people. That's just your day-to-day life in the office or wherever, out and about. You can read other people because you're trained to, because of the survival instinct. And that's where that comes from. But we're in that survival instinct. We're not really looking inward at the things we need to look at. So it's backwards, and it's the wrong way, and far less important than the real thing of knowing yourself. Now let me go a little bit deeper on why this happens, because it's not random at all. When a man grows up, he learns real fast what feelings are allowed and which ones get him into trouble. Anger, that one's allowed. It depends on what way it's expressed. Maybe punished in certain ways. And he figures out that that's kind of the default way in which to function, because the other things like being sad, no, can't really do that, being a boy. Scared, our culture kind of looks down on that. Needing someone else, God forbid you need someone else, because you got to figure this out on your own. So you shut down early. You shut down early because you learn these behaviors, you're domesticated in the ways in which to survive. So what does a boy do? He learns to respond with that anger as a primary default mechanism. And you shove everything else down, because everything else is looked down upon. And it works sometimes. You feel safer because it's familiar. When you know you can go back on anger, you can feel like you're in the defensive position, or maybe in the offensive position, because you're afraid of what might come at you if you're not. But here's the catch, and it is the big one. You can't numb selectively. You can't numb selectively. I never thought about that till recently. You can't shut down the sad and the scared and keep the joy and the peace. So you can't be selective in that way. You shut down everything. It doesn't work like a dimmer switch in a light. It's the main circuit breaker and everything. You just flip that circuit breaker and everything's off. You shut down the hard feelings, and everything goes dim along with it. That's why so many men will tell you they don't feel much of anything. Hopefully that's not you. Maybe it is. Not the bad stuff, but not the good stuff either. Their kid does something amazing. They don't know they're supposed to feel something big, and they're just feeling nothing. That's the cost of disconnection from yourself. It's not that feelings went away. It's that you buried that whole system in order to survive, and now you can't find the good stuff either. So let me show you what this looks like up close, okay? There's a man I worked with. He came up with no church, no faith, none of it. He was smart. He's in the computer sciences industry. He was a paid problem solver. And I asked him once, how are you feeling about this? We were talking about something pretty important that was coming about in his life. And he just kind of froze up. Not because he didn't know, didn't want to answer. He did want to answer. But because he genuinely didn't have the words for it. He could give me data all day long about other things, but he could tell me what he thought, but what he felt, nothing. Not really anything. Somewhere in his life he stopped, and after enough years, the needles just stopped moving. Now here's what that costs us, and it's more than you'd think. Because if you can't feel what's going on in you, you can't steer. You can't react properly in a way that's, emotionally intelligent. Something sets you off and you don't know why that is. You snap at your kid over nothing, and you're sitting there after going, where did that come from? Well, it came from the stuff you stopped looking at is where it came from. It didn't go anywhere, and you just quit reading those gauges. So it was there, it just didn't go anywhere. So listen, this one's pretty sneaky. And because we can look completely fine on the outside while we're living our life, we're successful, we're put together, we're handling our business the way it should be, but inside we're our own stranger. And if you've ever leaned on something to take the edge off, the drink, the screen, the work, whatever it is, then hear this from me. That thing was giving you a way not to feel what you didn't have words for. It was managing the disconnection. The day you set it down, that old disconnection is still sitting right there. And now there's nothing to soothe it with because you don't have another attachment to be able to give you the relief. And that's why you just setting the thing down is never the whole job in itself. It's a start. The thing you reach for was just a symptom. That disconnection inside, that's the actual work I'm talking about. So let's move on to the second disconnection. So the first one was with yourself. The second one is with other people. So don't get me wrong about this. I know that you have contacts, right? Hundreds of them, maybe even thousands, whatever. And they're in your phone, on your socials. You've got lots of contacts. And let's be honest though. How many of them could you call at 2 a.m. and lean on them for something you needed help with? 1, 2, 3, maybe? None? Because here's the difference. Contacts aren't necessarily connections. And somewhere in you already know that, right? So here's another one. Maybe your people scattered somewhere along the way. A move, a job, a falling out. A season of life that pulled you everywhere in different directions. It didn't feel like a big loss at the time. It was just one dropped thread at a time. Nobody called, you didn't call. And the one ordinary Tuesday, it hit you. You can't remember the last real conversation you had with anyone, and you couldn't even say how long it's been. And here's how we hide this one. We call it being, ready? Independent. We're self-made. We say, I'm a person who doesn't need anyone. I don't need a bunch of people in my business. Stay out. I'm good. How you doing today? I'm good. Some of that's real, but a lot of it's a story we tell. So we don't have to admit the truth that we're starving for one honest connection. We have no idea how to get it either. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of us decided that needing others was weak, that the only thing acceptable was anger, and push our way through it, push our way through the pain. No pain, no gain. So we built a life where we didn't need anybody, and then we can't figure out why we feel so alone. We do that to ourselves. And the good news is, though, if we built it, We can tear it down and build something else. And I want to hopefully help you get started. We're all wired for connection, and it's not a nice to have, but it's a need. And we need this, and we're wired that way. This fits in the same category as food and water as importance. A man alone with no real connection isn't just uncomfortable. It's a whole system that reads like, watch out, here's danger. That's what's being said. Our survival instinct kicks in. Then we respond and act and have relationships with that are shallow, act and respond in negative ways that are defensive and sometimes even aggressive, or both. So think about that for a moment. Your body treats being unseen as a threat, being disconnected, not able to really feel or name what's going on with inside. So we see everything as a threat. And then we respond in not the best way. And that's the low hum of anxiety, and something that we can't identify in the moment. But that's the alarm going off in the background if we can hear it. It's saying you're out here on your own and you need help. So here's the cruel twist to it all. The very thing that would turn the alarm off, reaching out to another person, is the exact thing that being disconnected tells you you cannot do because you're weak. Whatever that is, that story, that narrative is going on in your brain. It says, stay back, don't risk it. They'll see what you are, that you're weak, even though that's not true. So the alarm keeps ringing and you keep white-knuckling it all by yourself. Do you see the trap? The problem talks you out of the cure itself. That's why you can't think your way out of this one, my friend. At some point, you have to stop listening to that voice and reach out anyway, because reaching out is not weakness, it's strength. Okay, so the last one here. So we've covered connection with yourself, disconnection from yourself, what happens, the connection with others, and when you're disconnected, which, by the way, connection is the opposite of addiction. So if you didn't know that, that's the truth. So the last one I want to talk to you about, the being disconnected, is the most overlooked one. So I'm talking about being disconnected from something that's bigger than yourself. You can call it your higher power, God, whatever is your language for that. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt like something bigger than you had your back? Now, if you didn't grow up with any of those things, talking about church or faith, maybe no one ever handed you a way to think about it differently. Stay with me, because this is going to be something that could be life-changing for you. And by the way, I'm not asking you to believe in anything right now either, so stay with me. I'm just asking you about a feeling you've probably already had. Maybe it was a moment out in nature where you were quiet and something in you settles. Like for me, it's me on my bike. Or maybe it just happened when holding your kid the day they were born. So think about it. Standing somewhere and feeling part of something bigger in a way that's actually kind of a relief, isn't it? Seriously? I think there's less tension, less anxiety when you have someone, you feel like something's got your back. Someone's got your back. Some being has your back. So look, that's the thing I'm pointing at right now. I know you felt it. You just may not have had a name for it. Where you were being taken care of. Maybe it was when you're out biking, if you're like me, and you hit a rock wrong, and instead of going down and doing an endo, you were able to stay on course. Something, you just call it skill, whatever, could be your higher power too. Something had your back in that moment. Or maybe you were late for work someday, and you heard on the radio from your friends that there was a car crash on the exact route you were supposed to have been on at that time. Something had your back. Call it luck, whatever you want to call it. I call that being looked out after. And seeing these common things, these day-to-day things that appear to be coincidences, that are really something else happening. The Spirit's moving, that's helping us. You don't have to name this right now or define anything or join anything or believe anything. I'm not asking you to do any of those things. All I'm asking you is to don't dismiss what I'm trying to say, and don't just because you don't like some of the language I might be saying the way I'm saying it, because of possible church hurt, or beyond that, if you've never been to church and you've just heard or seen in person hypocrites of people claiming to be a certain thing, and yet they're having this behavior that's completely opposite of that. So please hear me out. That feeling, there's something more that I think you'll feel when I describe more of this. So most men shove it away the second it comes up. And what I'm talking about here is a mood. What if instead you just let it be there for a second or two? You didn't have to explain it. You didn't have to solve it. You just noticed it and stayed with it a bit longer than you would usually do. And that's the whole first step on the new pathway. And the door starts cracking open at that point. Okay, so here's why the third one really matters. Numbing yourself, numbing that ache. The first two things that we talked about, disconnection with yourself, disconnection with others. You can put a Band-Aid on that and numb something with something. Because, we were built for survival. And those things, we can find ways in which to survive. But when we believe that we have to do it all on our own, we've lost the ability to be connected with ourselves and others. So let me frame this. If we believe we have to do it on our own, it changes the whole framework, perception of interactions with ourselves, why we're doing a certain thing, how we interact with the world, other people. So those things are interplaying. And that's why that higher power language, or higher power, something bigger than yourself, is so important. So if you choose to stay disconnected, and that is a very lonely place to be, my friend. I personally years ago had that issue and thought I could do everything on my own. It was a very lonely place. So think about what I've said for a second. Everywhere you look, people are aching to belong to something. And you can see that in different ways, different clubs, tribes. You kind of be careful about the language there. Tribes, groups of people that you belong to. It's the strongest tie because, outside of those tribes, we can be lonely. So these people are restless. And there's a lot of noise out there also that underneath, it's the same thing that you might be feeling. The need to be seen and the need to matter to someone. So joining something, being a part of something, good or bad, cults. I've seen that's a reason why people join cults. One of the reasons, the feeling of belonging. How about gangs? Gangs also. It's a way to not feel alone. It's a way to be seen by someone else, that you matter, that you're a worthwhile human being, and you are a worthwhile human being. So here's what I've watched happen over and over again. When we feel we have nothing bigger than ourselves, that nothing has our back, we end up carrying the whole weight of our life on our shoulders. And again, what I said earlier about we respond to people in ways in which, we miss the true intent of what they're really trying to do. And a lot of times I think people are of goodwill. And we miss that because we look for the things that are trying to keep us disconnected. Competition can be one of those things. When we try to solve all those problems on ourselves, it adds on more layers of anxiety. And we feel like, if we don't do this, the consequences, being afraid of not being able to do something, not being good enough, being able to fulfill an obligation or do something. So all this leads, being disconnected leads to that loneliness. It's a crushing way to live. We're not made to carry all that alone. You were never meant to be the biggest thing in your own life. I hope that wasn't too harsh, but you weren't meant to be that way. That you are it. You weren't meant to be the biggest thing. Let's sit here with that for a second because I think it's profound. This one is one when men fight me the most when I mention this in the beginning because they just don't want to believe it is true. A lot of guys hear something bigger than themselves and they tense up. They think I'm about to sell them a religion or tell them they're not good enough on their own. And that's not the case. That's not it. So hear me out, please. This isn't about you being small. It's about you being held, protected. There's a difference between carrying that world by yourself and being part of something that carries some of it for you so you don't have to. The man who's got something bigger, whatever he calls it, he's not weaker, he's lighter. Because he finally sets down a weight he was never supposed to carry solo in the first place. And this is where the three intersect, by the way. Let me tie this all together in a nice package. When you're connected to something bigger, you stop needing to be everyone's rock also. So there's the other side of this. It frees you up to actually connect with people instead of just being leaned on by them all the time and then wondering why, what their motives are. And are they trying to get something from you when they're leaning on you? What's their real intent? You reframe that in a different way. You look at life in a different way. You're finally able to have room to be honest with yourself. That's none of these are separate fixes. They're one thing. And coming at you from the three different directions. So don't hear these as a checklist, by the way. So hear them as one turn of the heart working out in three different places, okay? You get honest with yourself, and it makes room to let others in. You let one person in, and it starts to open you to something bigger. And something bigger takes the crushing weight off so you can be honest. Round and round, each one feeding the next, and that's the pathway. Why do we miss or dismiss all of this? Does it sound like you've heard this before, maybe in different ways, or maybe some of the words are triggering you right now? Why do so many good, capable men walk around disconnected for years on end and never have a name for what it is? It's because we're trained not to look. Instead, we handle things. We rush through the pain, no gain. We're told, don't be soft. Don't be a pussy. Figure it out on your own. I think that I'm not saying anything that's too shocking, I hope. You know the lines and who said them to you. People, maybe your father figure, these things that have said, figure it out. Don't be soft. Maybe you've heard these things from different people. Most of us didn't get taught those words. We got taught it by watching. So even though we may have been told that, we were actually watching it. Let me give you an example. Maybe you heard about your grandfather who worked a job that was killing him. He hated it, and he never said a word about it because that's just what you did, that generation. You were told about how he handled a funeral. He didn't show any emotions. He got laid off, maybe. A diagnosis. Maybe his jaw set, his back was straight. He was the rock. And so you learn that. You learn that by example. So you're told that. It's reinforced by maybe someone who was told a story. Hey, stop being weak. Be like your grandfather. You know, buck up. You can handle this. Be like your grandfather. Nothing wrong with, family is important. So don't get me wrong in this, that these people did what they had to do to survive. So I'm not trying to put anyone down on this. But you absorb all this stuff and you may misinterpret what it means. I want to be fair here also. That same armor that's hurting you now has probably saved you also. So there's the give and take. It's an and situation. We tend to think as human beings in black and white and dualistic mindset. And there's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Richard Rohr, talks about dualistic mindset. And for everyday survival, we have to have that. But if you want to advance any spirituality, having the dualistic mindset of looking at things in black and white will keep you from progressing. For a lot of men, shutting down was smart when tough times came. It was survival, part of the way we were designed. If home wasn't safe, then clearly the world wasn't either. So feeling less was how we got through. So I'm not going to call out your armor is bad, because I've worn the same armor. It was doing a job when it needed to. It kept you alive to get you to this very moment that you're watching or listening to me talk right now. But here's the turn in all this. The thing that saved you at 15 is strangling you now at 35. That armor that got you through is now the exact thing keeping you and everyone else out, keeping you from being connected with yourself and disconnected with everyone. And nobody has handed you the instructions for taking off that armor and changing. And that's not your fault. It's not your fault. You did the best you could. But it's now time to do the work, to change things. Because what's working, what used to work, is no longer working, right? You're still with me on this video, so I think you may agree with me. So hey, look, maybe for his generation, I'm talking about the grandfather, that era, for his generation, it got him through. But nobody told you that the bill comes due. And he realized that. He probably didn't express it, but I'm sure he realized it. Everyone does. And that bill shows up in ways you don't connect back to the source. And here's how I know that about him. It shows up in a temper. You swore you would never have. Maybe his father had, and he swore he would never have, but you heard about it, how bad his temper was. It's the wall you have with a loved one, your wife, maybe. Your wife keeps running into because you won't pull down the wall. As a kid who loves you but says he can't really talk to you because you won't let him talk to you. As a drink that stopped being fun a while ago and became something else now. None of that feels like I never learned to look inside. It feels like life isn't working and you don't know why. But pull the thread a little bit and all the way back even maybe. And a lot of it lands in a place that, well, nobody ever taught you how to be with what's going on inside. So it comes out sideways. So look, it's estimated that 25% of our population is addicted to work. It's a big number when you think about it. So working hard has respectable, it's respectable. People think that you're a hard worker, that's great. Nobody questions a hardworking man. But a lot of the time, busy is just noise and a to-do list. So really underneath, it's the biggest lie of them all. The lie says, well, when I get there, then I'll feel connected. Or I hit that number. When I get the title. When the house is finally paid for. Like so many others, I chased that one for years on end, my friend. I know this intimately. I finally realized in climbing the ladder that I had the ladder up against the wrong structure. And there I felt empty once I got to that top. Lonely. I asked the question, is this it? Is this what I was been striving for? Did you ever get somewhere that you chased for years and then the second you arrived, you said, is this it? You felt nothing? You thought you'd feel like you made it when you got there, right? And instead, there was just that quiet letdown. And you felt guilty about it because you were supposed to be happy, maybe. That's not you being ungrateful, man. That's a wrong ladder or the wrong structure you have your ladder up against. And that is a signal. It's telling you the thing you actually are hungry for isn't that goal. And that hunger has a name, and even if you've never said it, underneath that number, that title, that bigger house, what you're really after the whole time is to be known, to belong, to matter to somebody. That's it, to be connected. That's what was driving the whole climb. You want to be connected. We just got told the way to get it was to achieve. So we chase the achievement, we thinking connection is on the other side, is someday. And we hit that goal and the connection isn't there because it was never a prize to win in the first place. It's the thing you build with people, with purpose, intent. My friend, all along it was a different ladder, a different structure we were leaning the ladder up against. So here's the good news. I've talked a little about stuff and you're still with me. Thank you. This disconnection isn't permanent, my friend. That's the good news. It's not a life sentence, and it's not who you have to be forever. It's just a place you happen to be right now. And a place is something you can walk your way out of also. Let me tell you what it looks like on the other side of things so you know what you're walking toward. It's not fireworks, it's quieter than that. So it's sitting in the quiet at night and not needing to reach for anything. You're content just sitting there in the quiet, being with yourself. It's one guy you can call and not perform for. There's another thing. So sitting by in the quiet, calling someone that you can be you. You don't have to perform for. It's feeling like you're actually in your life instead of watching it through the glass or being on autopilot. So that's it. That's the whole prize. It's a big one if you really think about it. It truly is. So I want to be honest about the timeline here, just to be frank with you. This isn't an overnight fix. It's not a 10 days to a new you. This is kind of a slow turn. Some weeks you'll feel it moving, and some weeks you really won't feel like anything's moving. But here's what I can promise you. A man who names it and keeps reaching, even clumsily, that's a word, even scared, is a different man in a year than one who kept it all locked down. So in a year from now, start doing these things, you'll be completely different than what you were. Not because you fixed yourself, but because you stopped doing it alone. So, interdependency is another word for this. You think of all the great leaders, there's lots of them, that have been able to realize that not going it alone and finding great people that could do things they couldn't do well put them in a position to win, position to be connected, to have the true connection, the true why we're here type of thing. So let me be straight about how it starts, okay? Because it's not what you might think. It doesn't start with a like on your feed or another self-help podcast like this one. It starts with an honest look and one true thing said out loud. It's small footing at first. You get your footing before you can go anywhere, before you can start running. You have to get your footing. It's because you can't connect to something you don't name, you don't have. The second you can say, I'm disconnected from, fill in the blank, and actually named it, you've turned and faced it. And hey, look, that's where the work really begins and not where it ends. It's just the beginning of a whole new pathway. So here's how it actually goes, okay? There are 3 moves to make. Number 1, start with yourself. Get quiet for 5 minutes. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 3 minutes. If you can't do 3 minutes, start with a minute. But start where you can. Start where you can and start building from there. Don't use your phone. Don't use a screen. No noise coming at you, so sit in a quiet place. Maybe it's in your car. Where you're getting home, you're sitting in your driveway. Maybe, it's out in the wilderness like I like to do. Now just ask, how am I actually doing? And be honest with yourself. How am I actually doing? Being in a quiet place, thinking about how am I actually doing right now? Some good days when you're feeling gratitude and you're feeling it, that what's happening in your life is good. And, you can express joy at that point when life is good. Or maybe there's a turn and the turn is not in a good direction right now. So you can say, you know what? How am I doing today? I'm not doing so good. And maybe I need some help. I'm fine. Things that you say to your coworker. I'm fine. Or busy. You know how it is. That answer, fine. How you doing, Eric? Oh, I'm fine. That's kind of a reflex thing. The real answer that you don't usually reveal is what I've just said. When you're by yourself, how you're actually doing. Now let me clarify something with you too. When you're in a work setting or you're in a setting that isn't your loved ones and someone's asking you how you're doing, you're not going to get into detail about what's really happening in your life that's good, perhaps, maybe overview, a high level view of it, or what's bad. You don't want to really go there either with people you don't know and trust. So let me make sure that's clear. There's not a misunderstanding there. So I'll tell you right now, having said that the first time you try this, it's going to feel stupid. So I did that and I felt stupid sitting there. You're saying this out loud. You'll sit there and your brain goes, this is a whole waste of time. I've got other stuff to do. And that's a sign not to quit. So don't quit. That noise is fighting you to stay. But stay anyway. Give it 5 minutes. Do it anyway. And let me tell you why 5 quiet minutes is more powerful than it sounds. So you can get up to 5 minutes, work towards that goal. If you can't get to 5, 10's better. But start where you can. For your whole life, that inside voice has only ever gotten scraps of your attention because you're busy. You're producing. You're handling things. It never gets the floor of what you're trying to say. What the quiet is saying loudly to you. It may sound weird to say it that way, but what you need to hear is in the silence. So it learns to whisper, and eventually it barely speaks at all. So you have so much noise happening that there's no way in which it can break through. So when you sit down and get quiet on purpose, you're telling that very part of yourself, maybe for the first time in years, okay, I'm listening. Here we go. And it won't all come at once. And it doesn't trust you yet. So does that sound strange? So the quiet's going to try to fight, the noise is going to try to fight the quiet. And, think of it as a battle at first to, get that first minute in, the first few minutes in. And as it grows, that battle will be less difficult. But keep showing up in that chair, and be in the silence. That reconnection to yourself, it starts with that 5 minutes and actually listening. But naming it by itself in a quiet room is not the finish line here either. That's you getting honest and taking the next step. And that's the next person coming up. So, go and talk to one person you trust. Not in a crowd, not with coworkers. If you're on a sports team, maybe you have a close friend there. Hopefully you do. But not with them, but someone, not a whole group of people, one person. Someone you feel safe with, that you can talk with. It could be your spouse, maybe not, but hopefully it is. Talk to your spouse, a family member, sister, brother. A real friend. Someone who you can be honest with. Someone who will be there for you. So if you're realizing that you really don't have one of those people, then finding one is the first work to do. That's the first place to start, is there. So if you've burned a lot of bridges maybe, and you've burned through a lot of friendships because of the goal, achievement, all the things, maybe the first task for you, the first start of the work is finding a new friend. Someone you can get close to. How do you start a new friendship? You find what's interesting in them. You ask them questions about who they are. That's how you start engaging with someone, to start a conversation, to start a new friendship. And by the way, all of this, talking about reaching out, and if you feel like that you've burned a lot of bridges and reaching out now would be a sign of weak, that you're putting up the white flag, that's not being weak. That is the opposite of weak. It's being brave. It's the bravest thing you can do on your entire list if you're that person. Also, so even if you do have someone, so let's go a little bit in a different direction for a moment. So say you're not the person who doesn't have anyone. You do have a few people that you can talk to, your wife or good friend or family member. So that's strength, and it's the truth that you need to hear from me, that I hope I can get through, that I hope I'm not going to lose you. The men who actually escape that basement I talked about, where the monsters are hiding down there, they sometimes get unleashed in really bad ways when we let them. These people that have actually, men who've made it out of that basement, realize they don't do it alone. They don't do it alone in their head either. So they do it in connection with other people. They're successful when they're together with other people and connecting. So reflection gets you to be honest. Connections get you out of it. So listen, this is the exact step most men skip. So let me get in front of it before we go any further. You're gonna do the quiet part easy, kinda. So you're able to sit with yourself for a few moments. You'll think of this as easy when you do the next step in comparison. We're looking inside part. So it will get easier and easier as you keep doing this. Because you can do that step alone when you're doing this, when it gets easier and easier. It's on your own terms also. And then when it's time to actually pick up the phone, by the way, when we go to the next step, that's where this starts to get harder. Or even meeting someone in person. Picking up the phone, texting them, it might be the best way to start instead of being in person. That's where the old training that you've gone maybe years, decades with, training, it kicks in the way you were supposed to be before, of independent, self-made, all those training of the past. You have to change the pattern, break the pattern. You'll come up with things like, I don't want to bother them, or she's got her own stuff to deal with, or I'll sound weak if I finally reach out after all this time. I haven't talked to this person in years. Hear me, my friend, hear me. That voice is the whole problem talking right now. If that's what you're thinking in your head, that's the whole voice that's causing the problem. The reach towards another human being is not the weak part. It's the entire ball game. Let me tell you what actually happens when you finally do it. You reach out to someone you trust, your wife, your brother, your old friend. Your voice may be shaking a little bit. You could even start the opposite way. I'm doing great. And you know what almost always comes back with? They soften. And they say something the version of, I'm so glad you finally told me. You know, people who love you have been waiting for you to reach out, sometimes for years, for you to let them back in. They didn't know how to reach you. Maybe literally, because you were hiding, but also figuratively. They didn't know how to reach you. Maybe you're next door, but they didn't know how to reach you because you sealed them off. And now you're opening that door. It's a gift to them too. It's not only a gift for you, it's a gift to them. You just didn't get something off your chest. You let someone back into your life. It's huge. That's how this works. One honest sentence breaks the spell for both of you. But you have to be the one to open that door and walk through it. So let that be you. Okay, so we're almost done here. I know I've been talking for a while. It's now the big one. I'm going to save the biggest for last. I want to talk to you about something bigger than yourself. And I want to tell you I don't want to tell you what to call it, okay? You get to do that work on your own and another time. That's a lot of different work. But I'll tell you what I've seen in men that I've sat with and worked with. The men who really find their footing at some point, every one of them stops trying to be the biggest thing in their own lives. Stop trying to be God, to be frank. There it is. And here's the part most men never get told. You don't have to build any of this from scratch, by the way. You don't have to invent it alone. There are rooms full of men already doing this type of work I'm talking about. So going this alone is not something you have to do. There are well-traveled paths worn smooth by people who walk them long before you ever showed up. And finding one of those paths isn't a crutch, I should say. It could be a church. It's one of the strongest moves that a man can make. So my friend, let me say this. You're not broken to the point of disrepair. So, whatever you're carrying, there may be more than one thing going on right now. I realize that. And that's worth taking seriously, I know. With real help standing by, there's real help standing by for you. But don't skip the piece we so often miss. A lot of us are disconnected and never, ever name it. And naming it is where the new pathway starts. So here's my challenge to you this week. 2 things. And they're going to go together, okay? First, finish the sentence out loud once a day. The thing I'm disconnected from is... fill in the blank. Don't try to fix it at that point. Just name it. That's the only goal here. So, the thing I'm disconnected from is... name it. Now be honest and do it out loud. So do it in a place, maybe in your car where you're by yourself. Do not do this in your head. Thinking those old thoughts got you to this moment. It's not always a reliable narrator. In my experience, something happens when you say the true thing in your own words out loud. It stops being a secret. Doesn't feel like a secret anymore. You're keeping to yourself. You're saying it out loud, you're naming it. So second thing is, and this one that actually moves the needle and is the action in this, okay? This week, take one step toward one person you trust. Send that text, make that call, sit down across from them, and naming it starts everything. The person is what changes it. And I know part of you is already negotiating with me, or yourself even, thinking maybe you'll just do the first part, the private part, and skip the person part. I get it, but hear me, friend, because this is the whole thing. You can't heal in the same isolation that's hurting you. The wound happened in disconnection. The healing happens in connection. There's no version where you can think your way out alone of that room. If there were, you would have found it by now, right? And you're a capable man. I know you are. You've tried. So there's been a lot of effort there at one point. The reason you haven't solved this like you've solved everything else is that this one thing that was never meant to be solved alone. This is that thing. You're never meant to be solving that by yourself. So the person isn't optional, all right? That person isn't optional. The person is the medicine for you. Reaching out to that person is the medicine. Okay, now this is just the first one, and it's where we start together. There's a whole new pathway ahead of us. We're going to talk about the quiet now and why we can't stand to sit in it. We can't stand to sit in it. Sounds weird. It's about the friends who drifted away and left you wondering what happened. And about the word God and some part of you that may have just tensed up right now in me saying that, right? Well, get there, my friend, one step at a time. You don't have to get it all today, by the way. This isn't a test. There's no grade. If the only thing you take away from this whole hour is one word, disconnected, and a quiet feeling that maybe that's been you, that's enough. That's the seed to get started, and everything else grows from there. So here's what I want you to do this week. Here's my request and my invitation. One honest name, say it out loud. Name of what it is you're disconnected from. One step toward one person you trust is the next thing. That your first move towards a new life. There it is. One more thing before I go, and I mean this wholeheartedly. If you're in a real dark space right now, you're having bad thoughts about not wanting to be here on earth, I'm talking about being alive, please reach out to a doctor or a therapist. Disconnection and depression are two different things. So if you're being treated, you're being disconnected, this is the work, all right? So you've worked with a therapist, you've got maybe even medication they've prescribed to you, then this is the work. If you haven't done those things and you're in a dark place, this is not the work for you to start. I'm not the one either, by the way. I'm not trying to replace the doctor or the therapist, nor is this episode here. There's real help out there, and reaching for it is one of the strongest moves that you can ever make. You're not alone. And you're not as far off course as you might think. Do the inner work, my friend, and you'll reap the rewards. All right. Till next time.